When was the last time someone really knew what was going on with you? Not fine, busy, things are good, but actually knew the real stuff, the stuff underneath the surface answer. If you had to think for a moment before answering that, this episode is for you. Because today we're talking about one of the quietest and most underacknowledged problems in adult life, the slow, gradual disappearance of genuine friendship. How it happens without anyone being the villain, how you can be surrounded by people and still feel completely unknown, and most importantly, what you can actually do about it. This is the friendship problem. You're not imagining it. The slow fade is real. There's a specific kind of loneliness that's hard to name. It's not the loneliness of isolation. You have people around you. You have coworkers, a partner maybe, neighbors, a group chat or two. You go to things, you show up. On paper, your social life exists. But somewhere along the way, you're not exactly sure when, the friendships that used to feel easy started to feel distant. The people you used to talk to every day are now people that you talk to twice a year, if that. The conversations got shorter, the check ins became less frequent, and catching up started to feel less like reconnection and more like updating each other on strangers' lives. If this is ringing a bell, I want to say something important up front. This is not a reflection of who you are. It's not evidence that you're bad at relationships or that you don't try hard enough or that there's something fundamentally off putting about you. It's a structural problem. And once you understand the structure, you can actually do something about it. What school was actually doing for you. If you think back to your closest friendships and how they formed, high school, college, maybe a first job or shared apartment in your 20s, here's what all of those environments had in common: forced, repeated, unplanned contact. You didn't have to try to see these people. The system put you in the same room week after week, year after year. Shared lunches, shared classes, shared dorms, shared commutes, shared early career chaos. You were just together constantly. And what social scientists have found again and again is that proximity plus repetition is the formula for closeness. Not grand gestures, not perfect timing, just seeing the same people again and again in low pressure situations over time. School did that for you automatically, and then it stopped. Nobody tells you this when you graduate. Nobody sits down and says, hey, the mechanism that was building your friendships for the last 2 decades, it's about to disappear. You're going to have to do it manually from here on out. They just send you a diploma and wish you well. So the thing about that is your life starts to narrow, right? We all get busier. We move also in a phase of life from total opportunity and freedom to sort of choose what we're going to do when we're going to do it to a very defined structure. We start working, and even if we're working remotely or have some, grace with all of that, we're still in a structured environment. Then we start to usually pick up a family. And if you have a spouse or you have a loved one or a significant other, whatever you want to call it, the fact is that's another person that you're spending your time with. So your time and your focus, especially early on, start moving all into career, all into family. Then if you end up having kids, it ends up taking up a lot of your extra time. And those are the people that you're going to be spending most of your time and your energy with. So your social life, your social world is going to narrow. And even if you're not the one doing those things, your friends typically are. So even if you don't, have a family or a significant other or other things pulling on you, or you don't have this high driving, ambitious career, a lot of people around you may. And so with graduation, with moving, with changing jobs, with having kids, all these things are going to affect that. And if you think about the friendships that naturally faded, not because you had a fight or a disagreement, nothing went wrong, but that shared context disappeared. They now had something else, you had something else. And so you didn't really grow apart from the people. You just stopped being in the same room. It doesn't mean you dislike each other or that you're bad at friendship. And that distinction matters because it wasn't a relationship failure. It was a structural withdrawal. There's a big difference there. The friction of adult life. So here's what fills the space that used to hold your friendships: work, commutes, parenting, finances, errands, home maintenance, health stuff, side projects, exhaustion. All of it's real. All of it takes time, and friendship, deep, genuine, reciprocal friendship, requires time too. The problem isn't that adults are selfish. The problem is that the demands of adult life weren't designed with friendship in mind. And then digital life came along and made it feel like connection was happening when often, if we're being honest, it wasn't. You could scroll someone's Instagram and feel vaguely caught up with them. You could react to a story with a flame emoji and feel like you touched base. You could text haha to a meme and think, well, yeah, we still talk. But none of that's the same as being in a room together. None of that's the same as a conversation that goes somewhere real. The feeling of connection gets mimicked, but the actual depth doesn't transfer. This geography problem, I totally understand. Two of my best friends from childhood moved to Texas and Oregon. We're literally in a triangle all over the United States. Very difficult to see them. I don't love them any less. I don't value them any less. And I do long for the days where we used to be able to spend time together all the time. But the reality of it is that's where our lives took us. And that happens. And then there's the exhaustion factor. Sometimes, if we're being honest with ourselves, yeah, we've got that phone number and we have a good intention to call and connect, but we're just tired. It takes emotional energy to reconnect with people. And by Friday night, the idea of making plans for something else and adding it to the to do list just feels overwhelming. Then the other issue is life gets busy and some of it is out of our control. We have good intentions. We set up a time to get together. And then for one reason or another, something bumps it. And then the other person has something that bumps it. And before you know it, you look up and months have gone by and we haven't been able to see each other. And that's really challenging. And then there's digital substitution. It's a surrogate for restorative feeling better. I mean, I know for me, when I started off in digital marketing, I spent years by myself and I had all these connections all over the world digitally. And I had one of my colleagues say to me, listen, we're having an event. You haven't come to any of the events. You really need to come. And I'm like, but I got to pay for plane fare. I got to pay for hotels. It's going to take me days out of my routine. This is a waste of my time. I can do everything I need to do here. And he said, trust me, just come to the event. I went to the event and I fully understood exactly what he was talking about. The difference between dealing with people online and having a sit down face to face over lunch or over a beer or in a conference room when you have a chance to actually get together and spend a weekend together, it deepens relationships unlike anything you could ever do online. And it builds connections. It builds common memories. It builds all of these other things. You get to know somebody. So now when you're thinking about them in that context, they're no longer just a name or a face or an avatar on your screen. They're a real human being that you interacted with and spent time with. And I think it's super important to be able to do that. So the irony is that we feel more connected than any generation in history, but oftentimes feel like something's missing. So the difference between being liked and being known. Here's where I want to slow down because I think this is the core of what makes the friendship problem so quietly painful. There's a massive difference between being liked and being known. You can be liked by a lot of people. You can be well regarded, included, invited to things, popular in the room. You can have a full social calendar and never once feel truly seen. Being liked is surface. Being known is depth. And what most adults are starving for, even if they can't quite name it, is to be known. To have at least one or two people in their life who know their actual situation, who know what they're actually worried about, who know what's hard, what's exciting, what they're embarrassed about, and what they're quietly proud of. Not the highlight reel, not the polished answer, the real thing. I mean, think about this for a minute. How many times have we heard a story about somebody does something tragic, either to themselves or other people, and all the people that knew them say, oh, geez, I never saw that come. That person obviously had things going on beyond what surface level was going to be able to help. And here's the brutal irony. The way that adult social culture is structured, we tend to perform with each other rather than be real with each other, right? We meet each other's representatives. Every conversation is a little bit of presentation. Things are going really well, actually. Yeah, we've been super busy. It's a good kind of busy. I can't really complain. Nobody complains. And so nobody knows you're struggling. And so nobody reaches out. And so the loneliness compounds. So the last time that I felt genuinely seen in a conversation, have you ever been in one of those scenarios where You're talking to somebody and it seems like they're a million miles away. You kind of know they're not really listening. Conversely, have you been in one of those conversations where you've talked to somebody and you felt like you're the only person in the universe? They're staring right at you. They're listening to every word you're saying. They've tuned out the background. What a difference qualitatively that makes when you feel so valued that somebody shuts everything else out to listen to what you're saying. And I think that's a big thing about what makes it different. Instead of always having eight different things on your mind, fully being present. That performance dynamic is tough. We live in a society and an environment and a time and day and age where everything is competition based, right? Because everything's so public, it becomes a situation where nobody wants to feel vulnerable. Nobody wants to feel less than or that they're not doing as well as everybody they know. So we try to present the best version of everything that's going on. But to the degree that that's false, the degree that that's a front, we are doing ourselves and our friends a disservice because we're keeping them at arm's length. So even if they want to help, they're not able to do it. It's those quiet moments of vulnerability that bring us closer to each other. Think about it. The last time that you had a real close encounter with somebody, it might have been over something funny. That certainly could be the case, but oftentimes it's not. Usually it's over something tragic, sad, or need where someone exposed vulnerability that made you feel so important and valued because they were willing to share it with you. And the people in our lives feel the same way. If we'll open up, they're much more likely to surprisingly feel closer to us. So the difference between having a lot of acquaintances and having even one person who knows a version of you is that it prevents you from being the most popular lonely person in the room. Adults often feel less known than teenagers, even though we're more self-aware and more capable of depth because we keep people at arm's length. And so if we start to confuse social activity with genuine connection, we're going to confuse being busy with being close, and they're not the same thing. So friendship in adulthood, it doesn't happen. It's built. If the system that used to build your friendships automatically no longer exists, what do? The bottom line is you stop waiting for it to happen naturally because it won't. This is probably the most important reframe in this whole episode. In adulthood, deep friendship is not something that happens to you. It's something you build intentionally, imperfectly, and often a little awkwardly. And I want to acknowledge this awkwardness for a second because I think it stops a lot of people. There's something inherently strange about reaching out to someone as an adult and saying essentially, I want us to be closer friends. It doesn't have the cover story of shared context. You're not both in the same class. You're not neighbors anymore. You're just two adults deliberately trying to build something. And that can feel vulnerable. It can feel like a lot. But here's what I've come to believe. That awkwardness is not a sign that something's wrong. It's the entry fee. It's what genuine adult connection costs. And on the other side of that awkward first move is almost always a person who's just as hungry for it as you are. So I know I've had a lot of people on my list to reach out to for a long time. And I know sometimes it's been really difficult. And even though I've had the right intention, for some reason I let other things get in the way or distract me. I also know that once I reached out, no matter what it was or how uncomfortable the conversation was going to be, almost 100% of the time, I felt better for doing it, and it went a lot better than I was afraid of. And so I challenge you to do the same thing. If there's someone that you want to connect with and you feel weird about it, or you feel as though, it's going to be awkward and it might not go well, do it anyway. Because what's the alternative? You lack that richness, you lack that depth in the friendship. So what difference does it make? You might as well take a shot. So I'm giving you permission to be the one who initiates because someone has to go first. And by the way, I'm giving the same advice to myself. I'm not good at this. Part of the reason I'm sharing it is because it's a struggle I have. I have lots of people in my life I wish I was closer to. I wish I talked to them more and told them what they mean to me. And I haven't done that enough. And so I'm going to commit to it. And I'm asking you to commit to it as well, because I think that is the secret sauce to getting enjoyment and fulfillment out of life. That vulnerability of reaching out is almost always matched by the other person's relief that you did, which is the other funny part. Oftentimes in these situations, the other person feels the same way. And then when we break the ice and we do it, they say, "Oh, I'm so glad you reached out. You've been on my mind. I've been thinking about it too. And I just didn't reach out." So adult friendship requires you to be slightly more intentional than feels comfortable. And that's okay. It's a learned thing. So, how do we actually fix it? What is the practical part? So, let's talk about how we can actually do this. And I want to be clear, I'm not going to tell you to join a club or download a friendship app. I'm going to tell you what actually works. And what works is simpler and less dramatic than you might expect. The foundation of rebuilding adult friendship is the same foundation it always was: repeated contact in low pressure situations over time. You're just going to have to create it deliberately instead of having it handed to you. Here's what that looks like in practice. So you can send the first text, not, "Hey, we should catch up soon," because we all know that phrase has become meaningless. Nothing ever comes from it. Something more specific, like, "I've been thinking about you. Are you free on Thursday? I would love to have an opportunity to actually get together and talk," or whatever it is. The specificity signals that you mean it. You need to turn vague intentions into actual calendar events. "We should do dinner sometime," ends up being no time ever. So when you say, "We should do dinner, how's the first Tuesday of every month?" and you put it on a calendar, you make it recurring. If you treat it like a meeting you don't cancel, the other person is likely to do the same thing. And create a structure that reduces the friction. A regular walk, a standing phone call on Monday mornings. That way it doesn't have to be a proactive reach out every time. A monthly dinner with the same 2 or 3 people. Structure removes the decision cost. You don't have to summon the energy to plan, you just show up. And choose depth over social volume, right? One honest conversation, honestly, it beats 5 surface level hangouts. You don't need more friends. You probably need to go deeper with the ones that you already have. And here's another tip: ask better questions. Instead of "How have you been?" which everybody says, and the answer is always, "Oh, good, good, fine." What's been on your mind lately? Or what are you actually excited about right now? Or what's something you're figuring out? These are questions that open doors that "How are you?" keeps closed. And let people see something real. You don't have to be a mess in public. That's not the point. But if you're going through something, say so. If something's hard, name it. People can't connect to a polished version of you. They connect to you. And reach out again, even when it feels slightly vulnerable. If someone doesn't respond immediately, don't catastrophize. Try again. Friendships get rebuilt through persistence, not through perfection. So here's the thing about all of these: none of them require you to be a different person. You don't need to become more outgoing. You don't need to overhaul your social skills. You need to make a few small, consistent moves and keep making them. Friendship in adulthood is built in small, repeated gestures. It's a text that says, "I was thinking about you." It's showing up the same dinner 2 months in a row. It's being willing to say, "Actually, things have been kind of hard lately," instead of defaulting to "fine." None of it's dramatic, but all of it works. So I want to leave you with something specific, not "go build deeper friendships." That's too big. That's the kind of advice that sounds right and does nothing. Here's what I want you to actually do this week. Think of one person, just one, who you've been meaning to reach out to, someone you genuinely like, someone you've lost touch with, or someone you see occasionally but never quite get beneath the surface with, and reach out to them. Not "we should catch up," something real, something specific. "I was thinking about you. Do you want to grab coffee on Saturday? I want to actually catch up, not just text." That's it. One person, one specific ask. Because here's what I believe about this: the people in your life who you feel closest to are not necessarily the ones you've known the longest. They're the ones with whom you have been the most honest, the ones you made room for consistently over time, the ones you've let see the real version of what's going on. Connection doesn't require a perfect moment. It doesn't require the exact right words. It requires a willingness to show up imperfectly, consistently, humanly, and let somebody in. You've been thinking about someone this whole episode. You know who it is. Reach out.